Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head down to Belgium and we're going to take a look at another lambic beer. I've been reviewing a good couple of these recently and I've been getting really into them, to be honest with you. For this review today though, we're going to visit a brewery who I have never tried anything from, and this particular Geuze, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is actually one of the older ones and also one of the smaller ones that you'll find in Belgium. So for the first time we are going to go to Hanssens Artisanaal and we're having a taste of their Oude Geuze. So this one comes in at 6% ABV, and of course the style of this one, as it says is a lambic Geuze beer. So really looking forward to trying this one. This is one of the ones that came through one of the last small partiers through Systembolaget here in Sweden. I forget exactly what date this one was released, but I've had it for a month or so before I'm actually reviewing it for you. I think it was released in, it might have been released either at the end of February or at the start of March, this one. I really can't quite remember, but it should be a really nice beer. Again, this is a Geuze that seems to be really quite well regarded, so very much looking forward to trying this beer, and as always I hope you guys enjoy my take on it. So anyway, as is usual with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Hanssens Artisanaal. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more beer reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Belgian beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Hanssens Artisanaal then. So the official foundation date of Hanssens is 1896, but the brewery can trace its roots back a little bit further than that. But today the modern version of the brewery, if you like, is located in Dworp, which is a municipality of Beersel to the south of Brussels. And I do apologise if any of my Flemish and French pronunciations in this video are a little bit off, two languages that I am not overly familiar with. But Hanssens can be traced back to the Het Geuze brewery, which was owned by the Van Hemelrijk family. But this brewery became associated with the Hanssens family through the marriage of Petrus van Hemelrijk and Johanna Maria Hanssens back in 1837. Joseph, their eldest son, continued brewing until 1888, and then his cousin Bartholem Hanssens took over the brewery on a 9-year lease with the understanding that he would return it to Joseph's children when they were of age. But Bartholem didn't actually want to give it back because the brewery was doing quite well and it was quite popular, and this supposedly caused a little bit of a family feud. But then he had to find a new location for his own brewery, and at this point he wasn't actually brewing or blending lambic beer, but he brewed a popular brown beer which was called the Valsen Bruyen, which basically translates into English as the Wallonie or Walloon brown beer. But during the First World War, the brewery was stripped of all its materials by the occupying Germans. They took it and used it for munitions, basically. But this returned the company so that it was just a blendery, basically. But Bartholem's son Theo took over the company in 1928, having learned his trade at the Vinderik brewery in Dworp, and he also used worts from various breweries in the area to create the lambic beers. There was about 3 or 4 different breweries that were listed there that he was using to create their own, to create their blended beers. But Theo's son, Jean Hanssens, took over the brewery in 1974, and he stuck to producing only Geuze and Kriek throughout the 1970s and 1980s because the market for these beers was shrinking a lot, and he actually continued to blend up until 1997. But it looked as though the Hanssens blending would stop, but Jean's daughter Sidi and her husband John decided to continue blending, and they founded the company in its current form, Hanssens Artisanaal. But there's no current heirs to the company apparently, and this sort of new version, if you like, is based on the family farm in Dworp where Bartholem worked all those years ago. But as of 2019 they've produced roughly 20 or so different varieties of beer. So yeah, it's quite interesting. This was a company that seems to have gone through a little bit of turmoil, but it has remained in family hands, and that's always one of the things that's very cool actually about these German and Belgian breweries, is they always seem to pass down the family hands, and it seems to be a trade that just goes through the generations of different families. I'm sure it would be the same in the Czech Republic actually with all of their breweries if there hadn't been communism, of course. But yeah, I always think that's really cool to read about when you're learning about the history of these different breweries. But like I said, this is one that I had never heard of this brewery before. but they appeared through the små partiers in Systembolaget here in Sweden, I think in March it was. So yeah, it kind of shows you that the guys at Systembolaget, they are getting us in some really quality and really unknown beer actually. So hopefully this isn't the last one that we see from Hanssens up here in Sweden. But yeah, that's all you really need to know about the brewery just now. If you want to learn a little bit more, of course, you can check out the brewery website, which you'll find in the description below, and of course you can follow them on Facebook and things like that. Follow them on Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, and that'll keep you up to date with all the latest goings on there. But yeah, it should be a really nice beer, this one. So without further ado, let's get on to the actual tasting part of the video then. This one, as I mentioned earlier, it comes in at 6% ABV, and apparently the wort in this one comes from the Boon, Girardin and Lindemans breweries, which of course are all quite well known. But I don't think you've actually seen me review beers from any of those yet on the channel, so that's something that I do need to fix actually. But yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork of this one. Very traditional and nice looking, I have to say. It looks like one of these old kind of scroll type things. But yeah, it tells you a little bit about it, and I think it's basically saying that it's with our own water, spontaneously fermented in fullers, basically. I think that's what it's saying. Blend of the finest lambics, 100% matured in oak barrels and spontaneously fermented in the bottle. So yeah, it does undergo a secondary fermentation. There you can see actually, this is one of the things, lambic beers, from what I remember, you're only allowed to produce a lambic beer within a certain distance, I think, of Brussels actually. So this is one of the reasons why this is a protected symbol actually by the European Union, much along the same lines as like Irish beer or Scotch whisky and things like that as well, the Highland and Lowland whiskies. But yeah, nicely presented beer, this one, and I do like how this all goes together. And it says this one was bottled in November of 2017 actually, so that's kind of cool. But yeah, without further ado then, let's get it out and we'll get on with the tasting then. I'm really curious to see how this turns out. Of course with these beers you can, you know, age them and stuff like this, but for me, I'm not as well versed in the lambic beers as I am in some of the other ones, so to me I just like trying them and getting used to the different flavours and stuff like that. But yeah, as you can see, a nice smoky opening there. They've even got a little bit about the brewery printed on the cork there, which is very, very nice. So let's get it out and get on with the tasting then. Let's just see how this beer turns out. Of course, this glass probably is not the exact one that the Belgians would use for lambic beers, but I have to admit I like these tulip glasses because they're the best all-rounders for all the different styles of beer. We'll just get the last of that in the glass there. But yeah, as you can see with this one, it's poured a nice, really nice, bright, orangey, golden colour, this one actually. Yeah, if I hold it up to the light, it does have a bit of a yellow edge to it, but it's got a really nice orangey kind of edge too. There's a half finger of a frothy white head on this one, about a half, yeah, nice half finger, but you can see the carbonation in this beer is pretty active, but that's understandable considering this one does have a little bit of secondary fermentation in the bottle. But yeah, it looks very, very nice. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a few little ones just heading up towards the bottom of that head there. But you know, overall it looks pretty nice, and of course this is within the sort of colour range. This bright yellowy orange colour is within the colour range of what you would expect for this is within the colour range of what you would expect for a nice Geuze beer. But yeah, let's take a closer look at the aroma then and just and see how we get on with this. Yeah, so this one, I would say the nose on this beer is quite it's quite reserved actually. So it has a nice, you can definitely smell some of the nice wheaty, white bready qualities in there, and you can smell, it does actually smell like some of these, it smells like, you know, the fresh wort when you've just kind of boiled it up and then cooled it down. You really get that nice almost, it's almost like porridgey or nutmeggy, the aroma that you get in some of these lambic beers. You really can smell the actual wort coming out of these. But yeah, I like how this goes together. It's got a really nice, this one, to me, it's one of the more subtle Geuze beers that I've come across so far. It's got a nice, as I say, that almost nutmeggy, porridgey type grainy base to it, but then you can smell some of the smoother, almost wheaty, white bready notes coming out of it. There's a teensy little bit of spice in there too, but it does have a little bit of a freshness to it. I do wonder if there's a little touch of a hoppy quality in there. It has got a little bit of a floral aromaticity as well, which is quite nice, but you can smell that nice sharp citricy character coming out of this one, which is good. Yeah, I mean, it's got a sort of appley, peary, orchard kind of ester to it, which is nice. Yeah, it's got that sharp, tart, citric, almost, I don't know if it's right to say lemon sherbety quality to it, but definitely some nice sort of grassy and floral freshness in there. I do think they will have added some, hops into this beer. But yeah, some sort of peary and appley esters as well, and a good bit of a nice kind of tart, lemony sharpness in there. But overall, this one is a really nice smelling beer. That it comes across as very fresh. It's got a nice little bit of malty sweetness to it, but nothing overly surprising about its aroma. When you consider that it's a Geuze beer, usually these beers, they've got a nice little bit of a malty quality to them. Usually a little bit of the kind of warty, almost like porridge, as I say, kind of porridgey, nutmeggy type aromas to them. And you've also got a little bit of hoppy freshness and some fruitiness and citric tartness in there too. It's got everything you would expect from this beer style. So yeah, as I always say, take a little bit of time and just enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But let's have a taste of this beer now and see how we get on. So this one is the Oude Geuze from Hanssens Artisanaal in Dworp, just outside of Beersel, to the south of Brussels in Belgium. Let's get stuck into this one. Slange, Skull, Proust, Santé. Ooh, yeah. That one's really nice actually. I do like this one. It's one of the, I don't know if it's right to say it's one of the smoother lambic beers that I've come across actually. But it's really nice. One of the things you always have to talk about with these sour beers is the impact that they have. And for me, having a really good sour beer, it's all about having the impact and just having a nice impact, and then it's all about how the beer kind of smooths out and the aftertaste that you get after that. For me, that's the sign of what you should get from a good lambic beer, and I have to say this one's given me a very, very good first impression. I've just noticed on the back of the bottle here as well, it says best before 2037, so they're actually recommending that you could age this beer for somewhere in the region of 20 years, but I'm drinking it when it's about a year and a half old. But as it stands, it is really quite nice. Yeah, I do like how this one goes together. So where to begin with this one then? So when you take this beer in, you get that sharp citricy tartness just around the kind of, it's just behind the kind of front edge of your tongue, if you like. You can really feel it go in and just give you a little bit of bite on the middle of your palate, which is quite nice. So with this beer then, it moves on to be very smooth and quite fresh actually. This is one of the more sort of fresh feeling lambics that I've had. I definitely stick to saying that about this beer. And as you always get with these, you have to really let your mouth adjust a little bit. You really need to take a few sips of this and just let your whole mouth adjust before you start analysing the flavour too much. But I would say, yeah, this beer has one of the kind of stronger impacts that I've come across. So as I say, behind the front curve of the palate, you really get that sharp citricy character just jumping in there. But beyond that, the middle of the palate is quite nice in this one. It's definitely a little bit more sort of grainy and nutmeggy, if you like. I do like how that whole side of the beer goes together actually. So for me, this one, you can feel the nice sort of, the further you go into the aftertaste, you can feel a nice little bit of the smooth, wheaty quality coming out of this one. If you go a bit further forward on the palate, you can pick out elements of vanilla and a little bit of a nice oaky kind of undertone to the beer as well. The vanilla flavours kind of mix in well with the oaky side of the beer. But you can feel there is a little bit of that kind of grainy, nutmeggy, how do you say, the sort of almost, it's not quite right to say brown bready, but a little bit of a kind of wholemealy bread, nutmeggy, grainy sort of thing from the wort that they've used in here. I have tried raw wort before, and it's quite an interesting flavour, and you can pick up a little touch of that in this beer, and it's quite a nice sort of complexity to have to the beer. But really, the further you go into the aftertaste with this one, the smoother it gets, the more wheaty and white bready, and you also get the nice kind of vanilla and woody undertones to this beer as well. And I always like that about these lambic beers. I like how they sweeten up the further that you go into the aftertaste actually, and this one does it really quite nicely. This is really quite sharp in the beginning, but then it just smooths out nicely. Yeah, I really like how this goes together. This is a really nice beer. So big thumbs up to the guys at Hanssens Artisanaal for this one. As I always say, I'm still getting used to trying these lambic beers, and they do take you a little bit of time to get your head around actually. On the edge of your palate, I actually find this beer does dry out quite a bit the further you go into the aftertaste, but in the back corners of the palate there's a teensy little bit of earthiness in there. That's quite minimal, but as you come further forward along the sides of the tongue, you can feel there's a little bit of a floral aromaticity towards the front corners of the palate. Then round the very front curve of the tongue, you've got a little bit of a lighter, more grassy quality to the beer. And the further you go into the aftertaste, the more it evolves to be if you go behind the front curve of the tongue, of course, you get that little oily bubble. But you'll notice towards the front of your palate, the further you go into the aftertaste with this beer, the more it evolves to have a little bit of that kind of appley, peary sort of ester. I'd say it leans more towards the apple side of things actually. But you do get that nice sharp lemony citric tartness out of this beer as well. It's a really interesting how how everything goes together with this beer. I like that actually. Yeah, no, I really like how everything's going together in this one. It's got a really nice it really has a nice blend of flavours, this. And this is one of these beers, it's quite a high impact lambic, I would say. It gives you a really sharp impact when you take it in, but then the malt base smooths out really nicely. And I do like the way that the fruitiness comes out in this one as well. It's just got a little bit of a sharpness to the apple side of things, which is kind of interesting. There's maybe a little touch of like an apricot or something in there as well. If you go to the very tip of your tongue, I want to say there's a teensy little bit of apricot in there. But you know, overall, this is a really nice beer, this one. And as I say, it's quite cool to try something like this from a brewery. It seems to have a hell of a lot of history behind it, but it's one that is really small and, you know, was relatively unknown. I'd never heard of this brewery until they appeared in the small partiers, and I just thought, well, you know, why not? So this beer, I think I paid about 80, maybe 80 or 90 Swedish crowns for this. It could have even been 99 actually, but I just kind of thought, you know what, never heard of this brewery, it's a lambic beer. Let's have a go at it and see what it's all about, and it's turned out pretty nicely, I have to say. So if you get the chance to try this one, the Oude Geuze, this is a really nice beer. And if you like your lambics to be a little bit sharper in the impact, and to have a nice little bit of smoothness and fruity character to them, this one ticks all the boxes for that. Overall, compared to the other ones that I've tried, this one is a little bit sharper in its sour character, it's a little bit more puckering. It does become quite dry the further you go into the aftertaste as well, but it smooths out very nicely, and it's got a good little bit of sharpness to the fruity side of it as well. But overall, a really nice beer, and I'm enjoying getting into these lambic beers a little bit more actually. I do like reviewing these for you here on the channel. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, yeah, I would say this is a mid-bodied beer. Carbonation has a little bit of a prickle to it. I mean, it's a secondary fermented beer. Of course, I always find that the sour beers, they always feel a little bit lighter in the mouthfeel because of the carbonation than they actually are. But this is one of the more oily lambic beers, I would say, that I've come across. It does have a nice oily mouthfeel to it, this one. Very little in the way of hoppy bitterness. I mean, I think you're talking about 30 IBUs, maybe 40 at a push. So it is quite low in the IBUs. I'm pretty sure they do actually add hops to these beers. But it does have a nice floral and grassy kind of freshness to it. Good little bit of sharp tartness in the beginning. You've got a nice little bit of a... you do have a nice little bit of a juicy fruitiness to this one later on, but it does have a little bit of sharpness to it. But overall, nice, smooth, and slightly wheat malt base to this, slightly wheaty malt base to the beer. It's got some lovely wood undertones as well, some nice oaky and vanilla sort of flavours in there too. But you know, overall, a really, really nice beer, and I'm glad I was able to review this for you. Like I say, very cool to try a beer from a brewery that has a hell of a lot of history behind it, but seems to be relatively unknown outside of Belgium. I'd never heard of these guys before. So yeah, big thumbs up to the guys at Hanssens Artisanaal for that. Hopefully I can review a few more of their beers at some point in the fairly near future. So yeah, it says it says that the importer for this one was Constant Companion, and that's actually again another import company I've never heard about, or I've never seen Systembolaget used before. So hopefully it's not the last time they bring some of these unusual Belgian beers up here to Sweden. But yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the Oude Geuze from Hanssens Artisanaal in Dworp, a little bit to the, just close to Beersel, a little bit to the south of Brussels in Belgium. A really, really nice beer, this one. One of the sharper Geuzes I've come across before, and I've really enjoyed reviewing this one for you, so I hope you guys have enjoyed the video as well. So yeah, once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Hanssens Artisanaal as well. Do give me some other lambic recommendations that I should have a look at as well, and hopefully I can review those for you over the next little while on the channel. It's been really cool actually over the last couple of videos to try and get into these lambic beers a little bit more. But thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. Make sure you check out my social media, and make sure you have a go at some of these Hanssens Artisanaal beers. Until the next time, it's Slanja just now, and I'll catch you guys later. The Oude Geuze from Hanssens Artisanaal in Dworp, just outside of Beersel in Belgium. Slanja, skål, Prost, santé.